afternoon, students. It's very nice to meet you, and I'm glad to have a chance to talk about the climate change and green growth. As you've been told that I've served as a Minister of Environment from May 2011 to March 2013, and I was the 14th Minister of Environment. In order to make the Ministry of Environment trusted by the nation, I emphasized to my people to work with the heart of the parent and brain of the scientist. Today I'm here to show you my experiences and some know-hows. Now, let me start with how serious of climate change is. And I'll show you some pictures. And have you remembered the typhoon named Haiyan hit to Philippines 2 years ago? That was in November 2013. And as you can see in this picture, everything was destroyed. And roughly 15,000 people were killed or missed due to this typhoon at the time. And this picture shows that the representative of Philippines at the COP19 of UNFCCC, that means United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. This meeting is held every year, the end of every year, and this meeting was held at Warsaw, Poland in December 2013. Now, if you look at the whole world, there are so many occasions of extreme weathers. There are many floods. Perhaps some of you may remember about the Katrina in 2005 that hits the New Orleans, and many people were missing and killed, and all the everything was destroyed at the time also. Brazil, Pakistan. In Pakistan, 2010, roughly 2,000 fatalities and 20 million flood victims were happened at the time. Japan, tsunami, that was 2010 also. And Bangladesh in 2001 has a very serious of flood happened at the time also. Drought, Spain, Portugal, Northeastern Africa, Australia has a series of drought weather, and heat wave in Europe, I think it was 2003, around 35,000 fatalities assumed in this incident. In Russia in 2010, there was I think the temperature was almost 40 degrees in Celsius, and there was a very serious fire around the Moscow area. Not only the heat wave, but also the cold wave was also happened in Bolivia in 2010. More than 6 million fishes were killed at the time. Now, if you look at this series of extreme weather, how do you think about Korea? Does any Korean students, what do you think about Korea? Is it gonna safe in this Korean peninsula or not? How do you think? Well, one student, says no. If we look at the data of average temperature deviation, last 100 years from 1911 to 2010, temperature rise on Earth was 7.5 degrees Celsius. However, in Korean Peninsula, it's 1.8 degrees in Celsius. It's more than double the temperature was increased in Korean Peninsula. Not only for this temperature increase, but also rise of sea level is more than 3 times of average of Earth. That means Korean Peninsula is not the safe place in terms of climate change issues. So when we look at all around the Korean Peninsula, Seoul, Jeongeuk, Gwangju, Gyeongju, and Jeju, Dongducheon, Donghae시, there are so many flood, drought, or typhoon, or heat wave, and so on. And I pick up 3 pictures of occurrence of extreme weather. Some of you who stayed in Korea may remember these incidences. In 2011 February, there was a heavy snowfall in Samcheok of nearly 100 years. So many people had a very hard time to overcome this snowfall accident. And 2010 September, Gwanghwamun, you remember? I mean, can you imagine where it is? Here's a Lee Sun-shin statue is here. Gwanghwamun was flooded. Huge precipitation in Seoul in 102 years. I mean, very short period of time within the local area. Very, very heavy rain was come, and also landslide was happening in Umyeon Mountain in 2011. So this extreme weather happens quite often, and this extreme weather and the climate change results of the climate change cause some effects not only for the temperature but also catching the fishes. If you look at the pollock is cold current fishes and reduced dramatically recently. On the other hand, the squid is warm current fishes and increase a lot. So climate change have a very good, serious effect even in catch of each fishes, not only fishes, but also some fruits. I picked up this article in one of the newspaper a couple of years ago, and the title was very interesting, says that melon becomes the representative fruit after 10 years in Korea. Actually, melon is not, Korean-owned fruits. It's a imported fruits in Korea, but perhaps it's going to be changed in next 10 years. And if you look at some hallabong, what can I say? It's kind of a orange. Hallabong? Tangerine? Yeah, similar. It's a kind of a genetically some tangerine or orange was produced only in Jeju Island. Now it's go up to Jeonbuk, Gimje, and also apple is a typical fruit was produced in Daegu area. Now it's almost in Seoul area. So everything changed. Now, let me ask you, what causes such unusual weather? Anyone can give me an answer? Why? What causes this unusual weather all around the world, Korean Peninsula and the world? Very good. Yes, carbon dioxide. Well, more specifically, not only the carbon dioxide, rather greenhouse gas cause those kind of extreme weather and unusual weather. But as you mentioned, carbon dioxide occupies more than 88.8% of the greenhouse gas. And the rest of the gas, such as methane, nitrous oxide, and so on. So those greenhouse gas cause this unusual weather. How? Now the mechanism, greenhouse effect. Usually solar heat comes to the earth, usually hits the earth and then the heat radiate to the universe. That's the regular process. But if, because of this greenhouse gas has some layer in this region, this heat radiation comes back to the Earth. That caused the increase the temperature, and that also caused rise in sea level. So these animals lose their habitat. So occurrence of unusual weather is all around the world, and there are some future prospects in Korean Peninsula. If the carbon dioxide density increased by 40%, then the year 2100, the temperature rise will be 3.7 degrees Celsius, and even in Korean Peninsula, 5.9 degrees Celsius. That's the future prospect. And that increase of temperature in globe and Korean Peninsula caused the sea level rise almost to 63 centimeters. So in year 2100, temperature in Seoul expected to have become similar to that in Busan nowadays. And also conversion of the whole country, the Korean Peninsula, Korean country into subtropical weather. So due to these serious problems of climate change, what is the international responses? Let's look at what they are doing. International society tried to convert from carbon-emitting society using coal and petroleum to low-carbon society. That's what the international society is trying to do nowadays. How the world respond to this crisis of climate change? European Union is typically, they did a very good job to respond to this climate change. Total 9 billion euro in monitoring climate change and developing sustainable energy system. And United States also $1.8 billion each year in integrated research program on climate change. And Japan also leading the development of 21 innovative technologies for having reduced 50% of the emission in the world by 2050. Not only those developed countries like EU or United States, but also even in China, they invest of a total $400 billion in technology for saving energy and improving efficiency. Not only the country's government, but also many companies also put their efforts. For instance, General Electric, their business strategy called Eco-Imagination, responding to the environmental crisis, expansion of investment in R&D and environment. And British Petroleum, they also did a lot of energy to overcome this crisis. Toyota, as you may know, hybrid automobile, they put a lot of efforts and energies and monies to develop the hybrid car to reduce the carbon dioxide emission. Now, if I show you the reality and the conditions of Korea, as we already seen previous slide, it's not that good condition. Now, if you look at the carbon dioxide greenhouse gas emission, total emission in 2010, the number is 688 million ton, and that's approximately 10% increase than the previous year. And even worse, even more surprising data is that this emission, 688 million ton, represents more than twice the emission in 1990. Within 20 years, the emission of carbon dioxide more than doubled. So, well, if we can say that the economic growth in Korean government has been very dramatic and very increased last 20 years, I think that's a good side. But emitting lots of carbon dioxide and greenhouse gas is not what we have to do in the future. So if you look at this graph, in each field, such as energy and industrial process and agriculture and waste, most of the carbon dioxide or greenhouse gas emission comes from the energy sources, such as POSCO or Hyundai automobiles or something like that. And this means Korea was ranked as the 7th largest emission country in the world. And does anyone know that Korea's economic situation, what number in the world? 13th, 14th, 12th, 11th? Yes, that's about the Korean ranking in economic situation. But greenhouse gas emission is the number 7th largest emission country. So we have to do something, isn't it? Not only for that, but also 97% of energy comes from the overseas. So our dependency on energy matter is very severe, and this energy import occupies roughly 1/3 of total imports of Korean government. However, the energy efficiency is around 1/3 of that of Japan, if you look at this graph. And that's roughly 1/2 of that of OECD average numbers. So there's many things that we have to do. We have to cut down the greenhouse gas emission, and we have to improve the efficiency of energy also. So, because of these serious problems of climate change and energy, the carbon dioxide emissions, Korean government, while I served as a Minister of Environment, put lots of energy on low carbon green growth policy. So now I'm going to start the marble game for this low carbon green growth. Initially, start with our former president, Lee Myung-bak, suggest a national vision for the creation of new 60 years when giving a congratulatory speech in August 15 of 2008. And he declared that the low carbon green growth as our new national vision. And he mentioned that low carbon green growth is an essential, not an optional. And vision, low carbon green growth is a vision for the national development rather than just a simple environmental policy. So next 6 years, low carbon green growth means qualitative development will be pursued, and sustainable growth that reduce the greenhouse gas emission and environmental pollution. And this is a new paradigm for the national development, creating job opportunities for youngsters like you are, and growth engine with green technology and new renewable energy. And Korea aggressively developed the green growth, and that Korea leads the discussion on green growth in the international society, such as adoption of green growth policy, as you saw in August 2008, and fundamental law system for the first time in the world. That was December 2009. The movement in Korea regarding low carbon green growth policy leads the adoption of the Green Growth Declaration by OECD Council of Ministers. That was June 2009. So this green growth gives us a good opportunity for resource-poor countries such as Korea, and chance for enhancing self-sustaining, and also gives us an advantage for dominate the market in the early stages. I will show you many activities that I've been performed while I was in the Ministry of Environment. The first activity was we had a pre-COP meeting that was ministerial preparatory meeting for the conference of parties, so that we call the pre-COP 18 on climate change. That was held in 2012 in October, and the venue was the Hotel Shilla in Seoul. The significance of this meeting was reinforcement of countermeasures to climate change and international proliferation of green growth. So in this meeting, we had roughly 45 ministers from the 45 countries get together in Korea and prepare the meeting for the COP 18. So we called it pre-COP. Usually the pre-COP, 1 month ahead of the time for the COP 18, held in the same country. But this COP 18, 2 countries want to host those COP 18, such as Korea and Qatar in this area. So we decided that Korea hosting the pre-COP 18 and Qatar hosting the main COP 18 meeting. So this meeting in Korea was held, and the main contents of this meeting was encouraging prompt operation of GCF and progress of discussion over long-term financing and settlement of progress of negotiation of capital general meeting. That's a Doha meeting, Qatar Doha meeting, and suggestion of a global green growth institution, GGGI. So in this pre-COP ministerial preparatory meeting, I served as a co-chairman in this meeting, an interview with the Secretary General of UNFCCC. I said UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. The Secretary General of UNFCCC is Ms. Cristiana Figueres. She is a very talented and very powerful woman. And also, during this meeting, we derived and presenting co-chairman's reflection as a result of this meeting. Now, next step was a COP 18 in Doha, Qatar. The significance of this meeting was progress of discussion on financial issues and adaptation, and regularizing the negotiation on climate system after 2020. That's the extension of Kyoto Protocol and closure of LCA and work crew, and also request for an approval of the Secretariat of GCF, the Secretariat of GCF, and submission of plans under creating long-term financing. And also the main content of this meeting was establishment of international mechanism related to the loss and damages. When you look at the Philippine case of Haiyan, there is, serious loss and damages happen, and especially the developing countries, or the poor countries have serious problems of those loss and damages due to the climate change. And also adoption of a work plan for Durban platform of COP17. And during this meeting, I participated as a head of the government delegation of Korean government, and I made a keynote speech, and also we searching for the cooperation plan for the establishment of successful business model by meeting with many, many people, such as Secretary General of UNFCCC, as you saw previously, and CEO of Global Environment Facility. Jeff is also another organization, financial organization regarding the environmental issues. And she is the CEO of Jeff. And also I had many, many bilateral talks with ministers of other countries, such as Qatar, Minister of Environment, and also the President of United Nations Development Program, UNDP. Now, GCF, the next step is next activity was a GCF, and in 2012, October, there was a board meeting of Green Climate Fund. This was held in Songdo, Incheon area, and during this board meeting, Korea was selected as host of the Secretariat of GCF. You may heard some news at the time. There was many broadcasting news was. Anyway, okay, the main contents of this Green Climate Fund board meeting, fund raised for climate change, supporting the reduction of greenhouse gas emission in developing country and its adaptation to climate change. Not only the reduction of greenhouse gas emission, but also adaptation to the climate change as well. This Green Climate Fund is kind of a World Bank in the environmental field. Creating goals of fundraising is roughly $100 billion annually by 2020. In this, there are many pictures that Korean government and our ministry work to attract the Green Climate Fund Secretariat. Here I brought something in my bag, but I'll just do it. This picture shows that when I made the keynote speech in COP17 in Durban, South Africa, in December 2011, Korea officially announced the United Nations UNFCCC in Durban 2011 for the first time, officially. And then Germany, Switzerland, Mexico, and some other country also expressed their intention to host the Secretariat of GCF. And in order to attract the GCF Secretariat in Korea, Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Foreign Affairs and many other ministries work very, very hard to attract these activities. So promotion of attraction activities on World Conservation Congress, Tbilisi Plus 35, and many, many other occasions. And finally, Korea was selected as a country to attract GCF Secretariat at the second board meeting held in Songdo. The previous slide shows that the board meeting pictures. That was October 2012. And the selection was approved officially at the COP18 held in Doha in December 2012, the same year. So finally, December 2013, historic launch of GCF Secretariat. And this slide shows many occasions. Our president, Park Geun-hye, attend this launch ceremony. And there are many discussions and congratulatory activities was happening. And if you look at here, GCF Secretary, it's hard to see. Welcome GCF and launch of GCF Secretariat. And there was many flags were there. Now the next activity was Rio Plus 20 Summit Meeting. This Rio Plus 20 Summit Meeting was held in 2012, June 20, and the venue was Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The significance of this meeting was emphasizing the importance of sustainable growth and proliferation of green economy for eradication of poverty, and reinforcement of international governance for sustainable growth, Korea-driven green growth, internationally diffusion. So the main contents of this Rio Plus 20 meeting was agreement between each countries for sustainable growth. And the activity, I can say that the announcement of green growth policies as a plan for sustainable development with the participation of a high-level council table conference and Ministry of Environment through UNESCOP Green Growth High-Level Forum introduced our green consumption production policies, if you look at here, and Ministry of Environment jointly with the UNEP holding of a high-level forum and business supported for implementing green economy in developing countries and sharing experiences of Korea for sustainable development. And also I made some congratulatory address for 3 major Rio agreements. Now the next activity was UNEP activity, and that was 12th UNEP Extended Executive Board meeting that was held in headquarters of UNEP, that's in Nairobi, Kenya, in 2012, February 20th. And significance of this UNEP meeting was evaluated as having formed a consensus on core agenda of global environment and achieved results as a process of preparing for Rio Plus 20 Summit meeting and leading an agreement. So there was also the publication of a summary report for a policy decision maker of the 5th Global Environmental Outlook Report, GEO5. This is in congratulatory activities for the publication of GEO5. Now, in this meeting, as I mentioned, there was a publication expressing appreciation to UNEP and also introduction of green growth policies of Korea by participating as a panelist in high-level symposium. And also I served as a co-chairman at the ministerial roundtable meeting on green economy. And next activity was the OECD meeting. We had the 10th OECD meeting of the Environment Policy Committee. We called it EPOC meeting at ministerial level. That was held in 2012, March 29th. And the venue was Paris, the headquarters of OECD. And this OECD EPOC meeting is the highest level OECD conference on environmental policy, and we discussed on environmental issues and cooperation plans under the title of Making Green Growth Deliver. So in this meeting, the main contents was evaluation of the past diagnosis of the present and suggestion of the future direction under the title of Making Green Growth Deliver. Emphasizing the green growth as a policy for overcoming the current environmental crisis and realizing the sustainable development. So in this meeting, I served as a chairman of the whole meeting, and this OECD ministers meeting on environment, and this was the first time ever since Korea joined the OECD, and that exert the global leadership on green growth. And our former president, Lee Myung-bak, was called the father of green growth, and the Secretary General of OECD, he is the Secretary General, and Mr. Angel Gurria, we called it guardian angel of green growth. And indicating this action, I served as a chairman in this whole meeting, indicating that the Korea has become a leading country, suggesting policies actively, and also facing the problems faced by the international community. And this was the photo after the meeting, all ministers of environment from the 36 countries of, member countries of OECD. And he is Mr. Angel Gurria, and I was here. And there's a couple more activities that I can explain to you. The next one was the tripartite environment ministers meeting between Korea, China, and Japan. And that was held in Beijing, China in 2012, May 3rd. And in this meeting, we discussed many current issues such as air pollution comes from the China to Korea, and also many bilateral talks were happening in this meeting. Well, here, performance of the leading role and the participation in the 14th Tripartite Environment Ministers Conference among Korea, China, and Japan. He is the minister from Japan, minister from China, and I had discussed together. And driving the agreement on joint research on air pollution involving long-distance movement between Korea and China. That was a very serious point of environmental issues between two countries. And the last activity was World Conservation Congress. This World Conservation Congress was organized by IUCN, that's an NGO group, but this is a very huge meeting and very famous meeting within the environmental community. And this meeting comes every 4 years, so we called it Environmental Olympic. WCC meeting, we called it Olympic of Environment. And that held in 2012, September, and the venue was Jeju Island, Korea. And this WCC World Conservation Congress, the main contents was World Conservation Forum, general meetings of the members, and World Leaders Dialogue, and many special conferences was held in this meeting. And Korea Times has an article, the whole article, saying that Korea's first ever WCC to open today on Jeju. In this WCC meeting, I organized the whole meeting and attended the VVIP opening ceremony and welcome ceremony. So I made the welcome speech and closing speech, and also ongoing World Leaders Dialogue. And we adopt the Jeju Declaration and bilateral, many bilateral talks with Minister of Environment from many countries. And this is the picture with the Egyptian Minister of Environment. Oh. Okay, so far I discussed about the low carbon green growth policies that Korean government pursued. And in order to make the beautiful Korea with the people and nature together, so we work very hard to save the earth together. WCC, pre-COP, COP17 in between, COP18, GCF attraction, and Rio Plus 20 in Asia Pacific meeting, Rio Plus 20, UNEP, OECD cooperation, and tripartite environment ministers meeting, and so many activities of international environmental cooperation was performed. Korea, in responding to climate change, emerging as a core country and play a bridging role between advanced countries and developing countries. And this gives us an improvement of national brand of Korea and also leadership in global environment issues. Now, it's almost the end of my lectures, and I'd like to ask you some questions. What do you think about the globalization? Globalization can be achieved in what condition? Does anyone give me some answers? Globalization. Here in this room, we have so many foreign students and Korean students. Frankly, it was a pleasant surprise to many foreign students in these lecture rooms. How many foreign students? Roughly 30%. Wow, you come from where? In America. Okay.